Bueno, buenos días a todos. Lorena, muchas gracias por la invitación y por la presentación. A todos los organizadores de CannaTech. Similar to Raquel and Doctora Maria Fernanda, they asked me to speak in English. But clearly, I'm Colombian, so if anybody has questions later, feel free to ask me questions in Spanish or English, and I'm happy to answer any of those. My presentation is going to be a little different to what we have seen up to now. We have heard a lot of doctors. We talk about the science of cannabis and what is happening in the industry. My topic here is, they told me in the audience there are many entrepreneurs, many business people, some students, a lot of people that wanted to know, how did I do this? How did I go from having a family business in cannabis to merging with the largest cannabis company in the world, a $12 billion company? How did I do that in the past 3 years? So I'm going to talk about that. Can everybody hear me okay with this? They were struggling with it, so I want to make sure. So it all started with this. My company was called Colombian Cannabis. We started 3 years ago on 4/20, which we're very excited, April 20th, the greenest day of the year. Yeah, I know it's hard to tell here, but this is the actual date and the time. And why we also highlighted is because it was at 7:30 p.m. The Chamber of Commerce actually closes at 6 p.m. But I think this was foretelling of how it's going to be the business for us, that in cannabis, nothing is truly easy. I don't think any entrepreneur in cannabis will say, oh, this was a piece of cake. You have to get used to having to open the road, be the first one in many ways for different things. But that is also why it's great to be here, that you need to have that passion to push forward and continue knocking on doors to make things happen. So the first thing we did is exactly this, what we're doing. I understood that Colombia probably already had a reputation for cannabis and other substances, and I needed to learn about cannabis, but maybe the people that had that knowledge were not the safest at the moment to be the people to talk about. So I started traveling to conferences around the world. So I went to California, I went to Oregon, I went to New Mexico, New York, Florida, Canada, Israel, Australia, Jamaica, Costa Rica, meeting companies, going to conferences, and a little trivia. My very first conference, which was in Florida, that's where I made the first contact with Canopy. It was in that first one. So network, talk to a lot of people. You never know who's sitting next to you. Don't underestimate the people sitting next to you because you never know where that's going to be. Some people here, like we see Reggie right there. I don't know where Reggie is now, but met Reggie in California a long time ago. There on the right, we see Professor Meshulem, where I was able to spend a few hours with him. Let's see. We also attended then a lot of events in Colombia. So, for example, we were part of the debating Congress when we were going to legalize cannabis. I think we were the only company present in that moment on that very first debate. And then obviously other events that started happening. Lumir is over there as well, the other professor that works with Meshulem. I know a lot of people here that I have talked to, for example, have gone to Amsterdam University. It's another place where you can get educated about cannabis. They have different curriculums. We did the advanced horticultural classes. We did some special courses, like 3-month courses in Colombia as well, to learn best agricultural practices and understand the regulation. And of course, it also meant we needed to travel around the world. I actually, some of these are some of my oldest friends in cannabis. I just had dinner with some of the people in these pictures of Israel. And then it also allowed me to see the different types of cultivation. So from outdoor cultivation, this picture on the left, for example, is in Oregon, in Portland. The middle one, where is a greenhouse, is in New Mexico. And the one on the right, indoor cultivation, is in Canada. So part of starting in this business is you have to understand the pros and cons of each of these. Probably, I wouldn't say there's an exact right way of doing it or a wrong way of doing it, but it's understanding what are the advantages and disadvantages, and as an entrepreneur, you will have to make strategic decisions on why do you believe that is the best way of moving forward. So educate yourself, things like Ed Rosenthal at the end as well. Here's my new boss, Mark Sekulin. Back then, we were just studying a relationship with Tweed and Canopy. So that was the first part. Educate yourself, networking, learn best practices, benchmarking. Just go around the world. I invite people every day. There's new countries coming up with legalization, so it's more opportunities to learn what's happening around the world. The second thing is they said that if you want to go fast, to go by yourself. If you want to go far, go with a team. This couldn't be truer in the cannabis industry. When they did the introduction, they said, I'm a finance undergrad. I have my MBA from Wharton. I work in management consulting. But now I had to learn a little bit about agronomy, a little bit about chemistry, a little bit about medicine, a little bit of law, a little bit of everything. But it's better when you have a team that is with deep knowledge in each of these verticals. So during these 3 years, the first was education. Second thing was building our team, finding the best of the best in each of these areas. You are going to need this if you're applying for licenses, if you're trying to open the market, if you need to talk to regulators, if you're trying to build partnerships. For all of this, it's going to be important for you. The third part is getting the farm. In our case, we're a vertically integrated company, meaning we go from seed to a finished product made of cannabis. Call it capsules, like gel capsules with cannabis. So it all starts at the beginning. In our case, we travel all around Colombia. We visited 111 farms before we chose that one. The 111th was the one that we purchased, where we currently have our operations. We started in the south of Colombia, the south of our state called Huila. That's where San Agustin is, which is like the Machu Picchu of Colombia. If you guys don't know Colombia, I invite you to come. It's a beautiful country, just 1 hour that way, east. Discover all the beauties of Colombia. So we went through Huila, Tolima, Cundinamarca, Antioquia, Santander. We went to the very north of Colombia, where there's some famous strains of Colombia, like Colombian Gold, Sierra Nevada Gold. So we imagined maybe that would be a good place for us to have our farm. So we visited like Cartagena and Barranquilla. We were in Valledupar. We were even to the top of Colombia, which is Guajira. But when we were selecting this, we had a matrix of a little bit over 25 variables. And only when we got to that 111th is that we finally, the whole matrix was green. It met all our requirements. So the criteria for this is things like the temperature, the humidity, the pH of soil, the water, even things like roads, security, communication. There's many variables that you have to consider. And in our case, we met them all with this last farm. The farm is actually located in that green dot, so it's almost in the heart of the Huila department. It's 130 hectares. I think right now, we're the largest cannabis farm that is fully licensed, all 130 hectares, to do psychoactive cultivation, non-psychoactive cultivation, and extraction in all 130 hectares. So it's beautiful, it's gorgeous. Maybe you will see it in the media one day, surrounded by mountains, beautiful valley. We have the Magdalena River. It's just paradise. But clearly, you can see I'm biased on how pretty this farm is. So I will encourage you to spend a lot of time on finding the right property, because this is what is going to allow you to have the best product. We know cannabis is, even when we say it in English, weed, is because it can grow pretty much anywhere. but it also changes how the yield is going to be in different places, or how likely you are to have more pests or more problems. So that's why it's also part of the strategic decisions you make as an entrepreneur when choosing a place. The fourth part is getting the licenses. So maybe to give a quick background, because maybe not everybody is familiar how the regulation works in Colombia. In Colombia, we have 4 types of licenses. The first one is the seed license. This is if you want to sell seeds or investigate seeds. The second one is the psychoactive cultivation. And the third one is non-psychoactive cultivation. Now, in Colombia, we know that line between psychoactive and non-psychoactive is something that each state decides autonomously. In our case, in Colombia, the line is at 1% THC. So above 1% THC, we call it psychoactive. Below 1%, non-psychoactive cannabis. And the last one, the one on the fourth, is the manufacturing or the processing license. So meaning someone gives you flowers, you do some kind of extraction, supercritical CO2, ethanol, butane, rosin press, whatever you want, and obtain a resin. And that creates the whole chain for Colombia to produce cannabis. You can see that each of them also have different uses. In our case, we have all of the licenses for all the different uses in our farm. Here's examples of, this is the day we applied for the license. That was like a 500 pages book. Probably like a whole month where we ate, sleep, and worked together to prepare what we needed to do for the license. And then we can celebrate with champagne on the right. It's important also to celebrate your successes and small victories. So this was the fourth part, the obtaining the licenses. Also important for, just as it is in Colombia, it's going to be in any state, this is a very highly regulated industry. I normally tell people that the entrepreneurs in cannabis is like the entrepreneur in steroids. It's the skydiving of entrepreneurship. It wasn't enough for you to be the risk of being an entrepreneur. You wanted to take it a step further and I want to be highly regulated, have stigmas, have society be concerned about what is happening. No manual, no path. I just want to make this happen. So if that sounds like you, you're in the right room. And I invite you to continue working in this beautiful industry. So this is an example of just Colombia, for example. In order to prepare our 500 pages, we had to read over 35 different laws to make sure we knew exactly what is the black and white. So we are not in any gray areas, no concerns. You have always to make sure that government is your best ally, that they understand where you are, what you are doing, make it easy for them to not be scared of you. And the last page, the last step, is actually the negotiation and convincing these other players to pay attention to you. In my case, this was then, I probably negotiated with Canopy Growth for 2 years, trying to say, pay attention to me as a woman, to me, a Colombian, me, a founder of a small family business, and why me and not the other 100 different companies that are out there. And the reason was everything that I described, having the education, being prepared, having the team, having the best farm, having the licenses, understand, if there were people who speak Spanish, I will say someone with C is thinking about me. I don't know if English speakers will get that joke, but someone with C is thinking about me. So this is the process of convincing them or negotiating Canopy to merge with us as a company. But also that one of the very important things, the part that I was the most excited about negotiating with Canopy is that up to our negotiation, Canopy was thinking, they used to go to each country, like they were in Germany and in Australia, in Jamaica, in many other countries, asking that each country will be self-sufficient. They will have their own production to supply the local market, and that's where it will stop. In our case, we said, Well, in Colombia, we can export. And Colombia is a beautiful geography where cannabis just grows like magic. So why in Latin America would you need to do cultivation anywhere else when we can supply all of it from Colombia? And this is the agreement we have with Canopy, is that the production center for all Latin America is going to be in Colombia. All the value chain from seed to finished good stays in Colombia. So we're very proud, very excited about that. Thank you, thank you. And just briefly, because not everybody knows who Canopy Growth is and why I was excited about this business. Canopy Growth is a publicly traded company. They're in the Toronto Stock Exchange, in the New York Stock Exchange. It's a $12 billion company right now. And under Canopy Growth, which is the holding, we have two arms. The Tweed, which is their recreational brand, because it's a Canadian company, so they do have recreational. And the right arm is Spectrum Cannabis. That's why when we did the introduction of my company, I'm Spectrum Cannabis Colombia. We have other brands, as we saw from the first speaker, like Tokyo Smoke and Haiku. There's a few other brands that Canopy has been acquiring slowly around the world. We are currently in over 15 countries. We are doing a lot of research and clinical studies, over 15 clinical studies in humans and 5 clinical studies in animals. We have also filed for 39 different patents. And just to show here a little bit of, we were happy to be that the shadow of Colombia to join the Canopy family. When I mentioned they're already in Chile, Peru, Brazil, Jamaica, Czech Republic, United Kingdom, Poland, as you can see, many others. So I'm going to recap on the 5-step we did, because I have 1 minute and I like being very punctual. So education, going to conferences, going to universities, learning best practices, talk to companies, talk to friends. This is an industry where we help each other. A lot of what I learned is because many other companies open their doors to me. And I know sometimes people get a little competitive edge on what I have to do, and there will be competition, but there's enough room for everybody. And I think this is what makes this also a beautiful industry, is that we can all work together to change the stigma, to make it happen, and we can be all on this, not war, but in this adventure together. Thank you. And then second, the team. Again, you don't have to do all this by yourself. It's already hard to be an entrepreneur in this. Get the best people. We have great, talented people all through Latin America and the world. Farm, if you're doing cultivation, take care. Don't just use the first piece of land that you find, because sometimes there's also the soil who may have been misused. Sometimes the humans, we haven't been very kind to Mother Nature, and it's also part of our job to leave nature better than we found it. This is one of our biggest principles in our way of cultivating. Is previously in my farm they had rice, and rice is very harsh on in the organic layer of the soil. So we're now actually making it better than the way we found it. Licenses, regulation, understand the law. Always be very clear about that. And finally, then talk to people. Attract who you want, negotiate, make it happen. This is my contact information, my email, if anybody wants to email me, bibiana.rojas@spectrumcannabis. And thank you very much for your time. Thank you, everyone.